Shall we proceed with the final segment of the first day SOFTECAsia 2025 panel discussion? Once again, please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the stage, Mr. Philip Liu. Oh, he's there, it's up there already. Okay. Mr. Vipul Kocher. All right. Oh, yeah, Mr. Simon Frankish. Yes, we have Mr. Simon and also Puan Zarina Zain.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. You all probably have your screens in front of you. Oh, yeah, you have it up here as well. The questions are pretty much self-evident, right? Some of them are directed at different members of the panel. We let them take the first kick at it, right? Others are free to jump in. It's a panel, right, where we are allowed to share our differences in opinions as well. That's healthy, right? And so the first question is for me, I think, right? It talks about the balance between leveraging AI in testing and ensuring we testers don't become over-dependent on it. There was a study that came out, I think, in the last month that said that for students, the best way to use ChatGPT, right, for learning is don't straight away jump into ChatGPT. Solve the problem yourself first, then use ChatGPT. That's the best way to retain your own thinking skills. So I would suggest the same, given that finding for education, that if you're a tester and you're using an AI product, do it yourself first manually, so that in that way you don't lose those skills, and then use the technology to supplement your own thinking. Because if you rely on the technology 100% over time, you will degrade in terms of your ability to solve that problem. Please jump in. If you would like. Otherwise, we can go to the next question too.
Yeah. This is actually a big problem at a larger scale. If you think about it, there are a lot of people now and children growing up that don't know how to read a map. And when I think about ChatGPT and some of the ways that we're using it, I think that possibly in the future, some people won't know how to read or write. And so I think this is a big problem going forward at a higher level for many, many skills, not just testing. So as the professor discussed, I think that we should learn how to do it ourselves, because if we don't know how to do it ourselves, then we can't evaluate what's good or not good coming out of ChatGPT and things like that.
One of the biggest issues of using any such tools is that it cannot create new information, because it is reliant on existing information, and its answer, of course, comes from a large amount of literature that it has been trained on, but still it cannot create new things. Now, that's what a human being is supposed to be doing. When you are thinking, you discover new things. And these new things, then, you have an idea and you expand on it. You write articles on it, you write books on it. It becomes a stream, it becomes a philosophy, it becomes a discipline. Those kind of things do not happen if your worldview is limited to what is produced by ChatGPT or such tools. So that is where the biggest problem lies. Even if you say, I am not becoming over-dependent on it, how do you determine what is over-dependence? That's the biggest problem. So if you solve your problem using ChatGPT or any such tool, there's a box within which you are thinking. And out-of-the-box thinking can only happen when you don't draw any boxes. So this is, in my opinion, so you should not use ChatGPT or any such tool at all. I'm just trying to see if you are awake or not. Well, what I mean to say is that, what Professor Dhaliwal said, you need to have your own thoughts organized first, then look at what, any of these tools do, compare the two. You can actually make use of the tool to compare the two, and then see for yourself what you have missed and what you have learned new things. That will continue to help you in terms of generating new ideas as well as taking advantage of the power that ChatGPT has.
Going back to Phil's point about people not being able to read and write and do maths soon, maybe to play devil's advocate on a meta level, maybe that doesn't matter if everyone's got access to the AI tools. I know when I was growing up and we had maths classes, and the teacher always said to us, you need to learn these techniques for multiplying and dividing. You won't always have a calculator with you, but I've always got a calculator with me, as does everybody else in this room right now. So maybe that doesn't matter, but I think Vipul's point about, not being able to think outside the box if you're purely reliant on AI to generate ideas is probably, for me, about the most important one I've heard today, I think.
The next question is for Philip. Please, Philip, you can read it.
Yeah, I was telling Vipul it was time for me to put my extrovert hat on again, come up here. I get this question, I've gotten this question a few times actually, and I think the best way to put on your extrovert hat during a meeting is to ask questions, to think and ask good questions. And that it's easier to ask good questions a lot of times than it is to be bold and make a statement or say something like that. It's easier to ask a question. I think that's a good way to break into to putting on your extrovert hat. Maybe none of you guys are introverts, so you wouldn't know.
I am a bit of an introvert, actually. But anyway, and I think if as a leader you've got introverts in your team, it's probably incumbent on you to get them to talk to you in meetings. Not put them on the spot, but I know I do group interviews when I'm doing assessments, and there's always a relatively small number of people who dominate the discussion. And so my role as an assessor at that point is to try and prompt things from other people. And I think maybe as a leader, if you're in that situation, don't just hope that they'll take that approach that Phil described, which is absolutely correct, but try and prompt them into doing that as well.
So one of the things that I do is every time I form a team, I try to make the team as diverse as possible. You need people from different backgrounds, different languages, different cultures, and in that way you balance it out, because not all of us have to be extrovert leaders, but at the same time you need the introverts in a team too. So I think trying to change personality, sometimes introvert leaders are great as well. So when you have a diverse team, somehow as a whole, if you the focus shouldn't be on the individual, it should be on a team. And so to me, balancing that out is always really important. Yeah. The next question is for Simon. Simon, should we use AI to generate test automation, test cases from requirements, considering that LLMs struggle with large inputs and have all security concerns?
The short answer is yes. I think we should try it, because it is something that people do. It does work. People need to be aware of the security concerns. And I think, as I said earlier, that there should be that trust but verify step in there. So yes, take a look. Use LLMs to generate your test cases from requirements, but subject them to a sanity check and build trust that way.
There's another microphone on that side.
Yeah, I think it gets back to the first question, which was, should we do it ourselves? And the answer is we should know how to do it ourselves first. Otherwise, how can we tell if the LM is putting out something that's reasonable?
Anybody wants to jump in on that question some more? If not, we'll go to the next question. Okay, it just shifted. So what skills should testers develop today to stay relevant in an AI-driven testing future? Please. Zarina, would you like to take that? The one at the top, yeah.
We can practice emotional intelligence, but how do we deal with teammates who gets upset over little things. Okay, we do get upset about a lot of things, right? So it has to be together. As I mentioned, when you talk about AI, you need to have a collaboration within or within the teams, or actually within others' teams, yeah, with the developers, with the data analysts, the analyst itself. So if people get upset, is the role of everybody to get the things moving, yeah? So maybe one got upset, others to help them out, to motivate them to move on, you know? So when they talk about AI as a collaborations, of course, everybody contributes to everything in the team. So I think, yeah, it's the role of everybody to get him or her on the move again.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, then the next question. I think for the audience, if you vote for a question, it rises to the top, right? You can see that, okay? So the question now is, what skills should testers develop today to stay relevant in an AI-driven testing future?
So first of all, what is the future? That is important to understand. AI-driven testing future, what exactly it is. So if it is that, you know, there are no testers, no human testers in AI-driven testing future, then no skills will help you stay relevant. So it is clear that we need to understand what exactly will be the role of testers in coming years. And you cannot make a blanket statement that testers would need to learn this, which would stay true for next 10 years. So unless you are asking for next 2 or 3 years, you know, it's very hard to give this answer about rest of the future because technology is changing so fast. But given the fact that a lot of software and a lot of software companies like banks and so on, they are not very fast in changing, but still their pace is changing. So I would say that one, what exactly is AI? We need to understand that. It doesn't mean that we need to understand the mathematics behind. It doesn't mean we need to understand the algorithms, but we need to understand generally what is machine learning, how does it work, what is reinforcement learning, how does it really work, what is generative AI, how is it getting trained. And then there are 2 paths. One is that a lot of people would be testing AI itself. And then a lot of people would be using AI to do testing. So essentially, mastery of AI as a user and mastery of AI as a tester of AI, these are 2 different skill paths that you would need to take. In the first one, I have already said you need to understand AI, etc. In the second path, where you are using AI for doing testing, you need to have greater understanding of the tool sets. For example, if you are writing automation, how to use Copilot, for example, or what is the latest version of Claude that is very good at coding. I keep forgetting the version numbers and names. So how do these really work? Then prompt, how do you do good prompting is something that you would need to understand. Another set of skills or part or sub-skills that you would need is related to at what point of time AI falters. For example, how many tokens can you provide as input, output, and what happens when that token limit is exceeded? Because that's when Gen AI starts to give answers which are not really very good, or hallucination or repetition, and so on. So you would need to understand all these different aspects. But let me ask you one question. How many of you think automation is the key to testing? Raise your hands, please. Automation is key to testing. I see only few hands. So, okay. Well, actually, automation to testing is ability to think about what to test. It is not automation really, because automation is just coding of the thought that you already had. If you don't know how to think of test cases, what all test cases you need to do, that is one of the most fundamental skills that unfortunately many testers do not possess and would need to continue to have that even in the AI-driven testing.
You can hold on to it. Anybody else on that topic?
I forgot what the question was. But I think getting back to the question about the tools and so on, I think sometimes I look at resumes that come across my desk and I see Microsoft Word and Excel, and I'm thinking, why do they put this on their resume, right? These are tools that are a given. We should know how to use these tools. And I think as a testers in our toolboxes, we have Selenium, and we have a couple of the tools that have floated to the top of the automation toolbox, right? And so what are those tools in AI that are going to be? I don't know the answer to that, but those are the tools that we need to put in our toolbox to be able to say that we know how to do those things. And as Vipul said, 3-4 years from now, maybe those will be different tools, right? But we do have to have a toolbox, and we do have to think about which ones are climbing to the top and which ones we should know.
Okay, if not, next question will be, the one had 13 votes, right? How do you suggest organizations start small with AI in testing without overwhelming existing processes? Anybody wants to jump in?
I've spoken too much, so.
No, it's fine, yeah. It's at the top question at the top, yeah.
I think start by identifying the areas in which you think AI can help you. And as I said before, focus on those, set goals, measure benefits. Don't try and go big bang and do everything with AI. That there is a drawback to that, of course, that if you do it piecemeal, you might end up with lots of different AI tools, and so you may be diluting your knowledge base, etc. But my advice would always be to really focus on where you think it can add value, or where you know it can add value even, and set those goals, measure those benefits, and move on from there.
Okay, hi. For me, right, you have to go to the journey. As I mentioned just now, start small, which means that, of course, you must have the manual testing first, and then establish it and get it firm with whatever they want to do with manual testing. Then slowly move to automations, and then get automation to be more stabilized in your organization first before you move on, Then goes to CI/CD, so get the people to understand, to stabilize the whole of the process, how testing going to be with using the automation and CI/CD portions. Then only you move to Agile. Because if you just jump into AI, it will be like you're creating a lot of mess, a lot of other things, rather than fixing the things, So start small, To me, when you talk about AI, there must be some background in automation testing. It's not from manual, just jump to AI, then it'll be a big hoo-ha in the organization at the end of the story. Because you have to go one step by step. As I mentioned, testing is a journey. It's not like today you want to do this, you have to do it. No, you have to go slow, one step at one time, and then go with the flow.
What I'm seeing out there is a lot of small standalone AI tools are starting to show up in the different areas for test generation, for different aspects of a tester's work. So start with those. Like I think the term that I used this morning was AI is a personal productivity tool, just like Excel. Remember, all of you use Excel for different purposes. Now, when Excel was originally marketed by Microsoft, it was actually marketed as a workflow tool, just like SAP or Oracle Financials and stuff like that. But it never ended up. Excel never ended up being a workflow tool, even though you can do documents and other kinds of things. So the way I see it is going is we are not going to get a lot of AI at the enterprise level, as a workflow tool, but at a personal productivity level, we all. So I would watch the space. Zarina had a big chart today showing all the different kind of automation tools out there. Selenium is, of course, one of the leaders in the field, right? So I think that's where AI will come into our testing world first. And while the organizational processes, I think there's still a ways to go with that.
I will take two examples. I'm letting aside code generation, not talking about that. But requirements review and test design. Give me one person who would say, my company or my team is not very good with requirements review or not very good with test design. I don't think anybody would say we are not very good, because that's basic task we do, and we know what we know, and what we don't know, we don't know. So what does that really mean? If you want to improve your testing from a requirements review perspective, do you know how to go about doing it? First of all, you have to identify that this is a problem. Second, you have to figure out a way how AI can help you solve that problem. So the way AI will help you solve that problem is to get somebody who has done it, who can give you pointers, maybe go for a day or two of training, or have a task force which experiments a lot. Learn a bit about prompt engineering, learn a bit about requirement review techniques, and then try applying those techniques using AI. And then see if some of the requirements, and of course you have to take into account security policy of the company. You cannot just go and feed your requirements to ChatGPT and then say, okay, give me review comments on this, because that may be confidential. So having solved all those problems, you need to understand how to take small pieces of requirement, how to review them for a lot of things like requirement characteristics, complete, concise, unambiguous, etc., etc. Then there are a lot of requirement review techniques like active reading and so on. Can you apply those techniques to requirements review using AI? What kind of comments does it come up with? How do these comments compare with your ability and your review comments that you've done in the past? So where AI can really help you. So you have to go deep. You have to do experiments and small, short experiments. Same goes for test design. Are you aware how good is your test design? What techniques there are and what techniques are you applying? How good is AI in applying those techniques? Are you sure about that? And then how can you overcome those limitations of AI? And then you would find that, requirements review, you are able to do a good job. If you are able to do a good job of requirements review, you are able to generate good test ideas using LLM, and then you can create better manual test scripts. Then remains the task of converting those manual scripts into automation and so on, which has its own set of challenges, would require another set of people, another set of training, another set of experimentation to do, and so on. So there is no option but to start small and do stepwise refinement. At least that has been my experience so far.
And what I predict what will happen is, in the marketplace for AI tools, there will be niche companies, small niche companies showing up and say, we have a LLM model either at the enterprise level or for a market sector, for example, for biomedical devices that you are implanting. They'll say, for test generation, for those kind of scripts, we have the model. And then in different specific areas, because this idea of using LLM for everything, right, kind of blows LLMs out of the world. But in very specialized domains, or even if your own enterprise comes up with its own LLM, which is because we don't work in 1,000 different domains. All of you tend to develop scripts in particular niches, and I think that's where the market shift will happen. And the code that is coming out of that, or test cases coming out of that kind of specialized niches, will be very, very quality driven, I suspect. And if not, can we pause, Zarina? The next question is for you. I find AI helpful for generating manual and automation scripts, but it is not very reliable because we need to validate them. How can we improve this, please?
Okay, I think I mentioned just now that when you ask AI, you need a skill, right? You can't be asking just a simple word like, can you write me a test cases? Nope, So AI use a lot of data, right? You have to input into them your the user requirement, your defects logs, your any logs that you have, the data, everything has to be fit into them so that they can give you a relevant answers, right? So at the very beginning, of course, you have to validate, mainly because you do not have enough data, maybe, or maybe you do not understand what to ask. But eventually, this validation will be removed so much. Yeah, you do not need to review too much when you get the whole of what you want to ask, because if you have about 1,000 test cases, I don't think so you'll be reviewing every one of that. So if you have a good data, if you have a proper requirements, I think AI is the best thing to suggest you for a good test cases. You don't need to review so much. The review portion is only on segregating which one is important. And even having said that, AI can help you to prioritize which one is the best thing, or you need to do first before another things happen. Yeah. But as I mentioned, it comes with experience, and you need to learn how to use these tools, because it's just a tool, and if you input wrong thing, you get the wrong result. That's why you need a lot of time of validation. But right, not so much on validations.
Thank you. The next question is open to the whole panel. And the next question is, how can we avoid, could you share some real-world success stories where AI tools have been effectively applied in testing? Also, how much ROI was achieved? Any one of you, please.
Sundar Pichai, he said that in his organization, 25% to 35% code is being written by AI. So that's the kind of ROI that they say that they have achieved. Companies don't share this very easily, unfortunately. So all I can say from having talked to the companies, consulting some of the companies that are doing this, many companies 4 years, 5 years ago were in stage of doing their own experimentation and so on. Many of those companies and those experiments, some of them have failed, but a lot of companies have now started to use AI for a lot of different things. Either they have their own tools for example, writing test cases, or converting test cases into test scripts. These are not, Selenium general Java test cases. I'm talking about specifically spaces like embedded systems, automotive, and so on. And because they have a certain format, certain standards which are fixed, it is relatively easy to generate those. I don't have any ROI numbers, but I can tell you a lot of companies have actually started using them in their day-to-day work and so on. Unfortunately, that's the vague answer I have.
I think really a similar answer from me. So we do a lot of TMMI assessments around the world. TMMI doesn't care what tooling you use, really, only that you use appropriate tooling. We do see some AI usage, particularly for test case generation. Often it's pilots, and we've worked with some fairly large companies that work with a number of clients, and they are piloting it with a number of their clients in niche areas. Again, on the ROI front, I wouldn't share that with you, even if I could, but they wouldn't share that with us in any case. It's not relevant to us. But they claim that they are achieving benefits through it.
I'm sorry, I'm reminded of someone I trained just a few weeks ago, and these guys use Copilot, and they do a whole lot of API testing, code generation for that using Copilot. And while I did this training for them, the second day and third day, they actually implemented a lot of it in terms of code templates and so on, and then got Copilot to fill those. And it was really interesting, the amount of code that they could generate. And then one comment they made was that if we were to do it ourselves, it would have taken us 3 days what they were able to accomplish in, let's say, less than half a day or so.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of pile on that. One of the questions just a minute ago was, what about the invalid test cases and requirements that are generated? And you talked about that a little bit. A lot of people kind of pick on AI tools or criticize AI tools because, oh, it generated these test cases and they were garbage test cases. And we have to think about, what does that mean? Well, is it duplicate? Is it invalid? Is it just doesn't make any sense, right? And so the thing is, if you spend, say, 5 hours picking out 50 test cases out of 1,000 that were no good, think of all the time that you saved, that 950 test cases that were developed. You forget about that other angle. You think about, it took me 20 hours to fix these 50 test cases, but what about the 950 that were good ones that you didn't have to do? And so that's one angle to think about. And the other, the ROI thing, we like to, as some of the other speakers have said, implement on a very small basis, but we'd like to think about non-functional testing. So like performance testing, usability testing, accessibility testing, security testing, those kinds of things that require experts that small to medium-sized companies don't usually have. That's a good place to apply AI, and you can get some good ROI there.
Good. The next question is about technical debt. How can we avoid automation testing becoming technical debt when we are always rushing to test and pilot new functionality while the debt piles up? That's a really good question. So if I can take a step at it first is, like the example I mentioned today, FedEx, remember they set up a separate company altogether, right, called FedEx Data Works, separate from the main IT service organization that services the whole global business, and then do all the AI there. In that way, the architecture and the programming expertise that is there is completely separate from here. So you are not hindered by the past. That's one way of doing it. The other way is, when you do design, when you design your larger architecture, have a long-term plan saying that, okay, you are aging all your hardware, you're aging all your software, you're aging all your libraries, right? And then over time, you're making sure that renewal is happening all the time, right, in that way. And the other thing is keep things modular. In the total portfolio of the technology you have, the more modular you are, the more plug and play you can do with newer AI technologies. And if the newer AI technologies are not plug and play into your architecture, don't bring them in, right? So those are some suggestions. Keep them smaller and modular, right? Separate it out if you like. That's the other option. And have a plan. Have a long-term plan for managing technical debt. That means don't just let it sit in that way. Please jump in here.
Okay. Automation testing is not what do you say? A debt, technical debt, is it? Right. It's not. When you talk about automation testing, normally we use automation testing to do regressions, right? So when you do the first time, you do it manually, of course. Then eventually you do automation and a maintenance of the automation things that you have done. Okay. So when you talk about tech debt, right? I don't think so. It happens so much, right? Because regression is something that you need to do often. Okay, because a system is just a system. You have one release at one time, and the second release is actually the enhancements of what extra things that you have, right? So who is going to do the one that was done before? This is where the automation comes in. So you save a lot of time doing the same thing over and over again, and then you only have a small thing to automate to enhance whatever that you have currently. Okay, to me, you need to understand where is the testing automation need to jump in. Manual testing for sure it cannot be right off. some of the things needs to be, to automate the things, of course you need to do the scripts based on the manual testing. Then only you do the regression testing for whatever product that you need to launch, right? So it also can help you on the performance testing. When you talk about current real world, right, real time and the times of usage is actually an important thing to users, like your mobile banking or your online shoppings, you do not want your customer to do it a long time, right? For sure you wanted to have some performance testing. So it actually reduced a lot of time in taking the automation scripts to do a performance testing at the end of stories. So I don't agree so much on the technical debt on that, yeah? Because of course you see that there's a lot of things to be done on automation at the very beginning, but it can be reused most of the time. Can be reused other times, so many times, rather than you do it manually again and again and again, When you talk about 1,000 test cases, how many users, how many testers that you're going to put in for at least 1 month time period, right? If you say that 1,000 test cases can be done by 20 testers at one time, and if you want to regress it again, you're going to have the same cost again. But if you do it automatically with automation scripts, you reduce this a lot of things, So that's what I think of automation testing.
Thank you. The next question is, as we move towards AI adoption, how do you evaluate candidates or employees that don't have much technical skills but are good with execution with the help of AI? Philip, would you like to take that?
Wow, that's a tough one. Geez, getting back to the previous question, though, what was the previous question? Technical debt, right. That question did not have AI in it, in the question. And the answer really is that we no longer have automation scripts with AI. Instead, we have prompts that we use as our automation scripts, because the AI develops the automation scripts based on the prompting and based on the test cases. So we don't have automation scripts that become technical debt. Now, getting back to this question here, how do you evaluate candidates that don't have much technical skill? When we hire employees, we think about problem-solving skills and analytical skills, and we interview them for that, and thinking skills. So we have a lot of tests that test their analytical abilities rather than just some tool. So that's how we evaluate people that come to work at our company, is really their thinking skills.
Anybody else on that?
So I think it's kind of asking, what do you do with people who haven't got the technical skills to use AI if you implement AI? And there's probably some ethical things in there. I think we were talking earlier about what will happen to people as AI grows, and will there be job losses? Will there be a lot of job losses? I think you might get to the point where organizations make a marketing point of saying they don't use AI and they employ people. So we see nowadays, organic food is more expensive. People buy it because they make the choice to do that. People in the future might make the choice that they would rather support organizations that actually employ people and don't use AI at all, or AI as much as other areas.
Good. We'll go to the next question then. Did you want to jump in there, Vipul? Were you going to say something? No. Okay, the next question is, assuming there is already a matured test automation framework in place, right? Let's make the assumption. What are the strategies to embed AI into the framework rather than revamping the whole thing? Anybody wants?
I would take that first. Why do you need AI in that framework? If it is mature and it is working for you, and there isn't too much of maintenance that needs to be done, then I would not even think of putting AI into it. If you need to put AI into it because, and you list down the reasons, then ask yourself, is AI good for this reason, that reason, and so on? And your answer would become clear to you yourself. I need to do a lot of maintenance because of, let's say, a lot of UI changes happen and my code is very much hard-coded to the UI, then that's where I need to make a change. I can actually take AI's help to basically identify in my code places where it is hardwired to the GUI, and then also seek suggestions on what can I do to change it, and ask the AI then to change it. This is one example. So if you repeat this process for all the pain points that you have with your automation, you would get the answer, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think embed is the wrong word to use, but rather complement and supplement. So if you have parts of your framework, parts of your scripts, if they're written, for example, in the page object model, if you have certain functions that changed a lot, or a certain page that changed a lot, and you feel that your scripts are incomplete, brittle, then you can have AI do that part and supplement and complement something that's not working very well for you. Like Vipul said, why would you embed AI into something that's already working?
Okay, the next question is for me. It says, earlier you mentioned a developer to QA ratio of 3:1. Just being curious, what's the reasoning or basis behind this ratio? What I was mentioning was a benchmark study between two large organizations, FedEx and Microsoft, right? FedEx at that time was a largely software development lifecycle organization. And if you took all the number of developers they had in the company on a global basis and compared them to the number of testers who all reported to a separate vice president, right? The ratio was 3:1. And they were following the life cycle. And they had a very structured, they called it a GDP, a global development process that they followed. And Microsoft at that time had already jumped into AI. And I think the book that you may want to read is, I think Alan Page wrote a book called How Microsoft Does Testing or Tests Software. And they were using these tryouts, where there was a developer, a software engineer developer, a software engineer tester, and then a project kind of a lead, a three-triangle person. So both the organizations were very interested in saying, wow, you are so much more efficient if your ratio is 3:1, while at Microsoft it wasn't, right? But don't forget, Microsoft is a software company producing software, while FedEx's main business is not producing software for the marketplace, but for its own customer. Moving packages, right, efficiently is their business. So what the two organizations were interested in is, one was interested in saying, hey, how do you make the GDP work for yourself? The other was interested in, how do you make Agile work for yourself, right? So they did a benchmarking study where we were the intermediary as an independent university research organization that facilitated that transfer. That's where we came up with this measurement, and we were surprised by it too, in that way. So this argument, the old argument that, hey, the SDLC is always more expensive, is slower, is, it's not necessarily true, given those ratios, and that's where the logic came from. Good.
Interestingly,
Please jump in. Yeah.
When was that study done, and has that ratio changed over time?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't repeated the study at all. This was done at least about 10 years ago. Yeah, about 10. Dave Miller was the vice president at FedEx at that time, and he's retired now. That's how far back we go. But please, jump in. Yeah.
B.J. Rollison was a co-author of that book, a friend, very interesting person. I used to work for Adobe, and there we had a ratio of 1:1, and sometimes 1.5:1, 1.5 testers to 1 developer. To test one simple feature like find, Microsoft Word has find, right? Control F. A similar feature in Adobe Reader and Acrobat, it would take 2 persons 18 months to test that feature. Throughout the life cycle, they would test it, because that software is used by billions of users all over the world every day. So you cannot afford to have common problems there. Otherwise, you would have a very large user base, which would be very unhappy. So Adobe's approach was to have a lot of manual testers and test it to its utmost depth. We used to wonder about Microsoft because many of our friends went to Microsoft. A lot of API testing was done, less, like a user and through a user interface testing and so on. So Adobe wanted to adopt a model that Microsoft had, and we used to have debates whether it's good or bad and so on, but we continue to stick with a 1:1 ratio for quite some time, at least 10 years after I left. Since then, I have not really studied, but the tendency that I've seen in the market has been to remove testers altogether and say our testers are coders, they basically do automation, as if automation itself would be able to find bugs. That's a fundamental flaw that I've seen crept in, and it will continue to creep in because of Agile. Because Agile is mostly a developer's world, testers have no role in it, unfortunately. It's all, bolted on kind of a thing, unfortunately.
I remember this morning I made the argument that I think I think the ratio could even swing the other way. I really think that coders, there'll be less coders in organizations as AI really takes off, and there are specialized libraries of code or coming out in dedicated fields. But I think that the AI code will always be brittle. That's the argument I see, and that we will need more testers. Of course, maybe the different type of testers than we have today, but we will need to test the code written by AI. So I predict, that's why you don't hear a lot. I'm not hearing a lot of testers being laid off, you know what I mean? Maybe less coders being hired through, right? So the ratio may actually become 1 to 2, rather than the reverse going forward. Okay, good. If there are no other additions, we can go on to the next question, which is, how can we ensure junior testers build strong fundamentals before relying on AI so they use it with knowledge instead of skipping the core skills? Please, any one of you.
I think at the moment we've got the ISTQB, particularly Foundation, which seems to be the de facto training of choice for testers and gives a very thorough grounding in the fundamentals of testing. It's complemented by some of the other ISTQB courses, but I think the Foundation is the key one. We're increasingly seeing a number of practical testing courses out there now that are designed specifically to complement the theory that ISTQB teaches. So people, in the future with AI, people may not quite get their hands dirty in quite the same way as they do today in terms of writing test cases, etc. So that perhaps those practical courses allied with the theoretical ISTQB courses will be the way that happens in the future.
Anybody else? No? If not, we can keep going to the next question. How do you think AI is going to shape quality assurance in the next 5 to 10 years? Please.
2008, I was asked to do a keynote on future of software testing. Well, it's, this is the easiest keynote to be done because you can say whatever you want to next 10 years. 2018, somebody came back to me saying, Vipul, you did 10 years ago a future of software testing keynote. Can you please go back to your presentation and do a presentation of everything that you said will happen in next 10 years? How many have really happened? Now that was the tough one, right? It's easy to make predictions in the air, and then you have to go back. Interestingly, 50% of the things that I had said is going to happen, they had happened or were in the process of happening. DevOps, even before the term DevOps came up, I had said that that's how testing is going to happen. Another thing that I had said was AI would be used in testing, and there would be continuous testing, and that is something that has happened. What hasn't happened and is in the process of happening is AI taking a look at everything that you're doing, right from requirements to development, and then production. Looking at the logs, looking at the bugs, looking at performance parameters and criteria, everything would be looked at, analyzed, and then reported in terms of what improvements need to be made. So largely it will become an automated process. What I haven't heard, this is something that people have been trying to do, have been doing, and so on with small to moderate success. This will happen. What I wanted to do way back in 2011-12, but technology didn't exist, but now is possible, is looking at all the bugs, finding the code patterns that gave rise to those bugs, and then becoming part of the knowledge base, becoming part of an IDE. So when code is being written, or human beings are reviewing, or even AI is writing that code, looking at that repository of patterns, bad patterns which result in certain types of bugs. So basically you see that and you say that these kind of bugs are likely to happen, etc. That is something that I foresee as something which would be game-changing and is likely to happen when somebody puts their mind to it. Technology is there, it's just that somebody needs to put their mind to do it.
Yeah, I also see, I think there's going to be a lot more outsourcing in our QA industry going forward. Like I said, and to pick up on Vipul's point, I think there'll be dedicated firms with dedicated models where you can give them all your, for example, your defect data, right? Then they can do specialized analysis for you that will be very useful. There may even be, I think CIOs and CTOs want that. They want options. And so I think the role of AI is going to accelerate the role of outsourcing in software testing. Absolutely, yeah. If not, the next question will be, what if one day we really need to rely on AI? Which current AI tools, ChatGPT, Claude, AI, Copilot, etc., that would be great one to use for the tester? Please. Which is your favorite one, Zarina?
Okay. There will be never one specific tool that can serve all. Today you can say ChatGPT is the best. Tomorrow there will be something else better than ChatGPT. Okay. So at this moment, of course, I can't say there is specific tools is the best. The best tool that you need to use is that meet your requirement, that meets that actually serve your purpose of the things that you want to do, because different testing tool got different way of doing things and different methods of displaying your framework or whatever they want to do. So there will be never one best testing tool in the market. I can't predict that, because there'll be because technology evolving every other days, now we are using ChatGPT. Tomorrow we might not be using it at all. There'll be another one coming up, because there'll always be a competitors in the market that try to supersede whatever is the best of all. Okay.
They are starting now in the literature more studies that compare them that are coming out. And I think there was a paper presented at MIT just about a month ago you can Google MIT Media Lab. And there was one paper, actually, it was written by a Malaysian scholar. She is now at Michigan State University. I think her first name is Jaya, because she emailed me that paper that compared all these tools from the different companies. I think Perplexity and ChatGPT came out on top based on the criteria they were using. But that's her study for her context. It wasn't about testing. But this is exactly why we are interviewing CTOs and CIOs, because the marketplace is moving faster than we scientists can keep up with the research to keep them honest, right? And so all of them are coming with all kinds of capabilities, and they're moving so fast. So unless we do systematic studies, we will not know the answers. And in your list, Hidayat, in your list you forgot Elon's Grok, right? Elon's competitor is Grok, and he has built his data center for Grok in Memphis, where I live. Okay, so now both the two most powerful supercomputers in the world are both in Tennessee. The the public sector one at Oak Ridge National Labs on the other side of Tennessee, and Elon's monster, gigafactory of compute in Memphis, right? So he will argue that we are already excluding one, really good one. Please.
Just a quick point. Again, an analogy to automation. I think when automation first came in, lots of organisations went out and bought an organisation tool from some slick salesman somewhere, and then had to work out how to use it best in their organisation. So the question should be the other way round. What do we want to do with AI, and which AI tool at the moment supports those objectives best? I think maybe we shouldn't be putting the cart before the horse, as it were. Getting it the right way around is the way to do it.
There are two tools that would be greatly used. One would be used always. Second one, based on these foundational models, and agentic AI has just started. You would see a lot of different agents doing different things. Companies having a marketplace with agents which would be able to do things, and agents that would be able to decide on their own which agent they need to go to marketplace, subscribe to, and get the task done, and so on. But ChatGPT, Claude, all of these are going to be those foundational models, and specific tasks would be allocated to them based on which model from a price performance perspective is going to be the best, and so on. So that's how things are going to evolve in near to mid-future.
Yeah, and also the amount of dollars that are going, the billions of dollars that are invested in each one of this, right? Essentially, all these 4 or 5 American companies, they're literally pouring so many dollars in it. I don't think all of them will be around in 3 or 4 years. I think there'll be some consolidation. Someone may just decide it's not worth us doing it. So there will be some consolidation. I'm not sure whether a market leader will emerge, but will be interesting.
Or there might be a DeepSeek moment.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And great. If there are no answers, let's keep going. The next one, anonymous. For an organization that wants to start implementing AI for quality assurance, what are main skills that testers need to have? Please.
Okay, just so I did mention in my slide, right? If you want to start AI, start smaller step, which is the automation first. You get your teams to be skilled with one automation tools. I mean, regardless, we have Selenium, we have Cypress, and currently getting famous is Tosca. You can get your teams to have this skill first so that they understand what is automation all about and how to build up the testing script via this. Then only you start with AI. Because AI, in the market, there's a lot of testing tool. Just now I mentioned you, there's 10 of generative AI tools and another 10, there's a top 10, there's a lot more. Even Cognizant have our own tools, AI tools. So when you have that technical skill of automation, you can decide what is the best tools that can be used in the organization that you are in to best meet and whatever that requirements is there in your company. Like, one person, if you have a car, right, one person can say, we are Malaysian, maybe Proton is good enough for us because it fits all our purposes, right? But another person might not say that, They will say other cars, other brands. So same thing with AI, because AI tools is a lot in the market. It's not one. But to me, you have to equip your team with at least an automation skill first to understand what it's all about, how to execute it, how to do it, how to get the framework matured in the organization. Then only you move. But you can try, at least try. Some of the tools, which is easy in the market, might not automatically create the test script for you. Maybe generate some test cases. See how does it goes, with the skills first. But that one, to me, it can be along the way within the teams where you can get along with a few people, then you try to use some of it. I think we have some a lot of workshop on that. But back to basic, I still think that automation skill is still required to move on for AI.
And I can add to that is, I think prompt engineering, is fast developing as kind of a discipline. And I think every organization should have at least 1-2 people who are getting better, practicing it, and teams should be allocating to each other. Okay, this week you're going to do this, and then we'll come and present to all of them so that you can share the knowledge. I think MSTQB has also released a course on AI for testing, where prompt engineering, I'm sure, will feature significantly in that. That's becoming kind of the place to start for AI in testing. So I really recommend doing that. Please.
I think that covers kind of the technical side of things. I think there's the other side of things as well. If the tester's role is going to evolve into somebody who's doing some verification on what the AI is churning out, then I think we've already spoken about the importance of having a good theoretical and hands-on understanding of the way testing happens. So I think we shouldn't forget that. Phil can probably add to this, but we probably shouldn't forget his EI stuff, for want of a better word, as well. Communication skills, for example. AI runs the tests. How do we then communicate that outcome to whoever we need to communicate it to?
I don't have anything valuable to add except what went in my mind. I was thinking of a Simon agent and Phil agent and a few other agents, where one AI agent is writing code, the other one is watching that for whether that particular agent is following processes or not, and if it can be at TMMI level 3 or 4 or 5, and so on.
Next question then. This is for the whole panel, right? As a team leader, how do we encourage creative thinking for a new generation who are used to produce AI-assisted work? Please.
That's a big one. I'll go back to a story. I started working before the internet. Can you believe that? And I remember being on a project, and I was with a client, and they had a big problem, and they were trying to figure out how the software worked. And luckily, I had the manual in my briefcase. And so I said, hold on a second. And I went to the bathroom, and I sat on the toilet, and I looked at the manual, and I figured out what the answer to their question was. And then I went back, and I answered their question. They thought I was a genius. And so if you carry that one step forward to when there is internet, and they have Google, right? So the thing about Google is that you have to know how to ask questions, right? And then the next step with AI, which the professor was talking about, is prompt engineering. It's still about knowing how to ask questions, right? And so I think that for our creative thinking, and what we have to know how to ask questions, that's a critical skill that combines creativity with analytical thinking that we need.
If I can add this, is as a professor, who has worked 30, 40 years in academia, there was a time when we didn't have Excel spreadsheets. We actually used to type papers on a typewriter. And now we have, documents we share across the world. Now, has it made us more productive? Are faculty publishing more papers now? Not really. So that if you look at the numbers over the years, not really. But what has changed is Lone Ranger research is dead now. That means in the old days, research papers, the published journal usually used to have one author, maybe 2. Now, virtually every paper in computer science has teams of 5 or 6. So the technology has actually supported team science. That means people collaborating across boundaries. And that's going back to what Philip said this morning about face-to-face interaction, the value of it. Once people are working as a team and talking to each other, they tend to be more creative, in that sense. So Lone Ranger research, is not as creative as teams working together. And technology has done that. And, maybe AI is going to do that for us as well. It's going to facilitate more teamwork. maybe some of the teams will be the agentic bots that Vipul is talking about, but that'll be interesting, I think, because it brings more perspectives to bear. So that's from my industry, at least, yeah. Anybody else wants to jump on that one? Or, okay, if not, we'll move to the next one. Anonymous, the next question. What advice do you have for traditional QA professionals who struggle with their technical skills? Will fully trained AI replace testers soon?
Is it okay if I take this?
Please.
All right. So,
Jump in, please.
will fully trained AI replace testers soon? Am I going to die one day? Yes. Answer to both questions, yes. But it is not when I die, it is what I do before I die that's important. So if I'm struggling with my technical skills, what should I really be doing? I should be improving my technical skills. How do I improve my technical skills? Using Gen AI. Ask it questions. Ask it for its sources of answers. Ask it, what should I be reading? Ask it to give you questions. So for example, you are struggling with, let's say, test design. You don't know what is state transition diagram and how do you design test cases using state transition diagram. Ask it. Ask it to explain it to you as if it is, explaining to a 5-year, 7-year, 10-year-old. And then ask it to give problems to you, which you can solve and give back, and it can check, right? So use it as your buddy or a mentor or a teacher. Of course, keep in mind that it could hallucinate. So always a good idea to go to maybe not just ChatGPT, but repeat the same set of questions with another one. Chances are everyone would hallucinate in their own way, but that's still okay. So what I'm saying, use it to learn new things, dig deeper, and ask it to ask you questions, which you reply, and it basically helps you with that. And that's it. You become a better tester. If you become a better tester, AI or no AI, your job is likely more secure than it was before.
Please.
Okay. Traditional tester will face off. Okay, yes. But tester will still remain. Now you are an AI tester. So if you talk about technical, AI is not so much, yes, there is a technical side of it, but then it's more on the critical thinking that a tester needs to have. AI is just a robot, You have to tell him or to tell it what to do. That's your role as a tester now. So you are playing a better role than before. As I mentioned before, just now, tester is not only finding bugs, but you are doing some more proactive things, like strategic thinking to the organizations. That's how it goes, So when I talk about strategic thinking, it's not so much on technical, right? It's actually the outer side of you, how you're going to plan, how you're going to do it, and how you can suggest good things for the organizations. So tester, the traditional way will face off, will just not be there anymore, but you are a more professional tester as AI testers, yeah? So the word tester still remains there. I don't think so that AI will take over tester's role, because it's just a robot. It needs somebody to move it to whatever that you expect it to do, okay?
Yeah, if I can just add on to that. Remember the whole idea of a virtual machine. Remember from the technical level, we have built up, and as you go up as we have gone up the stack, right, things become less technical. And now with the AI stack, remember, like, for example, if you're using prompt engineering, right, it's definitely less technical than some of the tools you were working on earlier. So I wouldn't worry about the technical skills as much, I think things are going to get better for us, yeah. Next question is for Simon. How can we incorporate TMMI and AI into today's agile methodology? Please, Simon.
Okay, so thank you, Anonymous. I can speak to that with regard to TMMI and agile. So the TMMI model was actually developed 16, 17 years ago. Agile wasn't around much at that time, really. So if you ever get round to reading the TMMI model, it's 294-page PDF document you can download if you're having trouble sleeping. You'll see that it's kind of littered with waterfall sequential testing jargon throughout. However, it's equally applicable to Agile. So when we carry out assessments and when people use TMMI, it's not prescriptive in any way. It sets out goals and practices which you should aim to satisfy. It doesn't tell you exactly how to satisfy those goals or practices. Our role and probably our main skill as an assessor is in understanding how those practices are being applied within the context of the organization we're assessing, be they agile, sequential, DevOps, whatever. And our skill set is really in understanding that the way that they're doing test planning is going to look very different in an agile methodology than in a sequential methodology, for example. And that goes throughout. The TMMI Foundation actually realized this has been a slight issue in the past, and there is a number of documents on their website now which specifically cover how TMMI covers Agile, so provide some further information on that. With regard as to AI in Agile, I'm not the man to answer that one, I don't think. That's not for me. I don't know if anyone else wants to take a stab at that one.
Please, anybody else wants to jump in? No? Okay. If not, we'll keep going to the next question, which is for Philip. You mentioned you control your reaction to things that upset you. When do you decide to stop tolerating and set a boundary? And one of the things you can do is have a moderator here in case the panels starts upsetting each other, right? The moderator has to step in, right? Go on, Philip.
That's a good way to answer the question, is that you actually have to moderate yourself. Yeah, I mean, this happens to me every day, right? And so I ask myself 3 questions. The first question is this really important? The second question is this important right now? And the third question is that I ask myself, I told you I have a little man on my shoulder, right? Is he there now? I think he is. The third question is, what good can come from this? If I say this thing that's in my mind, what good can come from this? And usually the answer is not much, right? So those are the 3 questions, and then of course I use the Abraham Lincoln method as well. And I just had this happen to me a few weeks ago. One employee wrote me an email that, to me, obviously he wanted to be fired. And I sat and I got the email and I looked at it, I was like, wow, and I started responding right away. I was like this. And then I said, whoa, stop. I wrote a couple sentences and I put it in the draft folder. And I waited for about 3, 4, 5 days. And then I thought to myself, okay, well, obviously I have to fire this guy. But I went through all the things that I needed to do in order to fire the guy, right? So, cutting off system access, segregating his work so it wasn't working with other people that much and things like that. So it took a few weeks to get that done, but I didn't react. I responded. And so I think that's the thing that you have to think about is, what good can come from this? When you're about to send that email, when you're about to react to somebody that said something criticizing you, just ask yourself, what good can come from this before you say it?
In my team, one of the things that I do is, we have a great football team and a great basketball team, so it pretty much covers the whole semester. So if I see 2 people in my team, kind of not getting along so well, I buy 2 tickets and I'll give them each. I say, both of you are going to the game and sitting next to each other, right? And 50% of the time, it solves the problem. When people go out and socialize and get to know each other on a one-on-one basis, trust me, all the work things tend to disappear really well. So as a leader of my team, the onus is on me to be proactive in helping the team members get along. And so I use things like that, and for me, it works really well. Please, jump in, please. We all have employees, so.
Since we are talking about what limit should I set for myself, Is there a limit to being good? There's no limit, right? So why should I set a limit for myself for tolerance? I should be able to tolerate everything. The only question then remains is, at what level will this tolerance become harmful to the person who is doing that? Harmful or toxic to the team or the company? And that sets my limit, not my personal ego. That is basically my way of looking at things. Is it my ego which is getting hurt? If yes, good, let it get hurt. If it is going to cause problem to, the person, the team, the company, in that order, then that sets the limit.
I actually asked ChatGPT how I should respond to this, so I did use AI.
Okay. Any more perspectives on this? If not, we go to the next question. On getting people to use AI responsibly, I've seen senior developers, testers be over-reliant on Gen AI GPT in their work. How do we stop this behavior? Anybody wants to jump in? I think that's a Philip question, right, Philip?
Yes. One thing that I have done that I can tell you is this. If I find this behavior, and that happens when you look into the output that is being produced by people, and you find an over-reliance, you find sloppiness, you find mistakes because of hallucination, you find standard arguments that are coming from the LLM without any modifications, without any addition to that, then basically bring in the person, ask the person, how did you solve the problem? Why did you answer this particular thing? Why did you choose to act in this way? And basically question, and more question, which should lead to this person knowing that because I have not thought through this whole thing, because I've relied on ChatGPTs of the world, that's why I didn't think deep enough and I've been caught. Without really telling them you've been caught. And then, next time, hopefully they would become better. That's the only time that, I have used it in this way.
I guess it's how you're defining over-reliance on Gen AI or GPT. So what's actually happening that makes you think that over-reliance is a bad thing? If they're not, to me, this just kind of devolves down to, are they doing something wrong at work that they shouldn't be doing? And you deal with it in exactly the same way as you deal with anything else. If it's causing an issue, have an open and honest discussion with them about it. But I'd question as to what over-reliance on Gen AI actually is. If they're producing more work quicker, I don't see the problem. It's just if the work is incorrect, and you know it's incorrect because they're over-relying on GPT, it's exactly the same as any other workplace issue in my mind.
We in academia are used to critical thinking. We are trained in critical thinking. When we grade our students' papers, we are being critical thinkers. And one of the things we have in research is once you produce a paper, you are supposed to stand up in front of your fellow colleagues, like at our departmental research seminars, and present them. And people are going to challenge you. So if you're in academia and you're in research and you don't have a thick skin, you won't survive very long. And now ChatGPT is coming into papers as well, right? But when you're faced with an audience of peers and all of them are trained like you and they're going to give you tough questions, you yourself will realize that you can't rely on ChatGPT. You better be able to answer those questions. Same thing when we publish papers, we go through, sometimes 2 years of reviews of other academics just tearing apart this wonderful masterpiece you have produced, right? And that review process is healthy, in that way. So if someone is using a lot of ChatGPT, make sure the review processes, right, are there. People are asking questions. People are challenging each other. People are suggesting ways to extend the work or improve the work. So I think that dialogue, that happens in academia is really, really special. And many of us who are in academia, we love it. We love the feedback. It makes us more resilient. It makes us not take things to be upset too easily in that way. So So that's one way to counter ChatGPT in the, have people present their work and ideas. Yeah. Next question, if not, Philip, that's for you, I think. Wow. Are we at risk of losing emotional intelligence in a world dominated by AI?
Is that related to software testing, or is that just a life question?
I don't know. That's for you to interpret. Yeah. Or we'll take both.
Okay. Well, I think the answer to that starts at home. How many people have kids that know how to use an iPad or are constantly on their TV or borrowing your phone? And just this morning, my kid asked me, "Can we watch TV?" Because we don't have a TV at home. We don't have a TV at home. I literally force ourselves to hang out with each other after dinner every day. There's no TV. We have to play games. We have to do something together. So we don't have TV. We don't use iPads. We went to a restaurant the other day, and I saw a couple, they had their kid there sitting with the iPad in order to entertain him so that he would behave during dinner. And my daughter got down and went over there and wanted to talk to him and be friends with him, and he ignored her because he wanted to hang out on his iPad. And I thought, wow, okay, and it reminds me of during the pandemic, we had a sales guy, and he wasn't showing his video on sales calls. And I told him, you really got to show your video on sales calls. The personal connection is really important. And he refused. And I waited for a little while, just like Abraham Lincoln would do, and then he had to go. So, how does that work in our everyday lives for work? I think that face-to-face meetings are really, really important. And silence is good too. I take a walk with a lot of the employees in the company, and sometimes we just walk, and there might be several minutes with nothing said, and that's okay. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but I tried.
Anybody
else have any tips to add?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, one more thing. Anybody follow Arthur Brooks? Arthur Brooks is he's a key researcher on happiness. And he says the three components of happiness are satisfaction, like setting goals and meeting them, right? And enjoyment, and meaning or purpose. And for the enjoyment part, he says, some people think that eating an ice cream sundae is enjoyment. But that's actually pleasure. That's a pleasure that you get doing something, eating ice cream, or maybe you go someplace and go scuba diving or whatever. That's pleasure. Enjoyment is when you have that pleasure with somebody else and share it with them. So if you have a candy bar by yourself, that's one thing. If you share it with somebody else and share that experience, that's another. And that's another part of human interaction that I think is kind of going away with the internet and all these little toys that we have like this. And so I would encourage you to have enjoyment rather than pleasure. Do it with other people.
No? Okay. Okay, then we go on to the next one. Since AI models rely heavily on training data, how do we prevent bias in AI-driven testing? Who wants to jump in?
So we are talking about bias specifically in AI-driven testing. Not general bias, but when you are doing testing. So the question, what kind of bias would impact my testing negatively? If I answer that question, then we can look at how to prevent that bias. And I will give you an example. When you are doing testing, combinatorial testing, so you have huge number of combinations. Let's say a browser with, all rest of the parameters. And your model may be biased towards using Chrome as one of the most important elements in those combinations. So majority of combinations have Chrome as the browser. Now that is a bias. If you are able to detect those kind of things, that my AI, this kind of a bias could really cause problem in my testing, then you could specifically ask ChatGPT, for example, to not have that kind of a bias, or apply techniques which will give you a count of, for example, count of Chrome, in how many combinations Chrome appears versus others appear, and if it is not a balanced thing, then you call that out, and hopefully ChatGPT would balance it out. So this is one example of bias in AI-driven testing. What other biases could be there? So you could, for example, be using AI to create test data. I don't know how many of you would like that use case. Now, there could be a bias that majority of test data, for example, has, let's say, Christian names, or has gender as male, or has certain age groups missing, and so on. So there cannot be a generic answer, in my opinion, to bias in AI-driven testing. You have to look at what is it that you're trying to test, look at what kind of biases would potentially harm your testing. If any of these biases do not harm your testing, even if they are there, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think sometimes bias is good. I mean, sometimes you don't. Maybe your user base is mostly males, so why wouldn't you have mostly males in your training data?
Okay, I will, at this point, we have only 1 or 2 minutes left, so I'm going to hold off the questions, because many of these you can engage the speakers directly afterwards, right? I want to thank the whole panel, and I just want to spend the last minute by starting with Puan Zarina. In 1 minute, if you want, if there's a kind of a message to the audience you want to share, and then we'll quickly do that, and with that we will come to a close. Please, Puan Zarina.
My message is, look AI as another way of moving your life. You see, because soon, like AI will be part of us. So don't take AI as a threat. Take it as opportunities. That's my message.
Simon, please.
I think I'd encourage people to try using AI, but use it with a purpose, have a purpose in mind, and ensure that you reach whatever goals you set for that usage. If you don't, then maybe it's not for you in that particular use case. But try it, but try it with purpose.
Kung Fu Panda, peace, inner peace.
Wow, I kind of took a chance by proposing this talk today, and I didn't think anybody would really be interested in it, but it seems like you are. So thank you for coming and listening, and if I can impart on you anything, maybe it would be aware, have awareness, and respond rather than react.
Good. And finally, my message to you is, remember what the article I mentioned this morning, which a lot of CTOs are really reading carefully, is understand AI as a normal technology. We are going to get a lot of waves coming. So don't buy into the hype of AI that is out there. Just say it is just another technological advancement. If you take that perspective, you'll understand it. We'll be integrating it into our lives, like Puan Zarina will say. It's nothing to fear about AI. It's not going to destroy the world, kill each of us, not at all. Don't buy all that hype of the technology cycle. We are going to have a lot more. So read that paper called AI as a Normal Technology. So with that, thank you. Please give the panel a show of your hands. Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much. Very productive indeed. Thank you very much, Professor Jasbir, and all our keynote speakers of Day 1 SOFTEC 2025. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, please a big round of applause to our esteemed speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.